right, welcome to CAPECAST. Brandon, it's like old times. We're recording a CAPECAST. We don't have anybody commenting. No one else is here.
This just is like the two beginning. Of us. I love it. I missed it. Didn't know that I would, but I just miss it.
You're surprised, huh? That's okay. Before we start moving here, this is going to be our. We're doing a top 10 DCEU film rankings for each of us, and what we'll do is we'll count backwards, I guess, from 10 to 1 for each of us till we reveal our favorite DCEU film. But before we do that, I do want to recommend that you hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of the videos that we are putting out. We have a weekly show where we talk all things comic book, movie, and physical media and collectibles and anything else you can think of. And then give us a follow on Twitter at CapeCast Show. Always talking the same thing there. And we have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/CiNEMACHiNE. We appreciate any of the support that we get there. So, there we go. I figured for some reason when I click the social thing now, it when I come back, the frame's gone. I don't know why.
You gotta click on to the other one. You click it again, it's gonna remove. So
that makes sense. I'm rusty. I've been doing the comments thing since we went live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
It's okay. You'll get it.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Yeah. I know. All right, Brandon. So do you want to kick us off, or do you want me to kick us off with our I guess our least favorite DCEU movie?
Well, I don't know your rankings, so I'm very curious. Why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay.
This is your number 10, right?
Just for to clarify, we are not including Justice League.
I'm including it.
Okay, fine. Brandon's including it. How do you have 11 then? So you got to do yours. I only have 10.
Okay, well, fine. Well, then I assume is Justice League going to be your number 11?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
There's so much hate, pain there.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about it? Ryan's, we'll call it your dishonorable mention, so to speak.
Yeah, there you go. Justice League. This one was just it hurt so bad and for so long, and it ruined so much. I have only negative associations with it. So that's that for that one for me.
Whoa, look at you.
Oh, look at you.
Okay.
All right, Brandon.
So that's your number 11.
What's your 11 then?
You don't have anything else to say about it?
I don't. Hate that movie. I hate that movie so much.
Okay.
I hate it.
Right.
Everything about it.
Sure. I mean, I do too, but just okay. We'll move on.
Okay.
We've said enough about it, but I'll say more later. My dishonorable mention is Wonder Woman 84. So, which is going to tell you that Justice League is higher on my list than Wonder Woman 84. This movie is awful, and I don't say that about movies typically. I just I don't know. I had very high expectations with this movie, especially coming off of the first one. And this movie kind of it's the most nerfed nothing movie I've ever seen. And it just annoyed. And if you go and watch our review of this movie, it was not favorable. We just ripped this movie to shreds. There's just so many things wrong with it. And again, especially after seeing how Diana was treated in BVS, the first Wonder Woman, and especially Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's like this movie is just it's bad. The bottom of the barrel, and that's why it's my number 11. But since it's my dishonorable mention, I'm gonna do what I should do with a dishonorable mention, not give it too much light of day. So I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna just leave it in the past. So.
I give Justice League even less.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, so let's start with your number 10.
Well, my number 10 is Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh yeah,
So
good. I don't have to pull the graphic up; it's already up.
Yeah, that's right. Mercy. Yeah. So just so everybody knows, I have kind of spent the last 3 or 4 days like going back through and refreshing myself on all these movies, and good Lord, this movie. It's amazing how phoned in this movie is, and just kind of like you're saying, the drop off in quality from the first Wonder Woman is just absolutely astounding. I
think that it's phoned in, because I feel like I don't feel like it's phoned in. I just feel like it's a product of DC at that time, and this is what the movie that came out was the movie they made, which was just something that.
It feels so phoned in to me. There's so many plot holes in this movie. So many plot holes. Like, so many plot holes.
Are there plot holes in it?
Yeah. I could not imagine after watching the first Wonder Woman movie, I could never imagine a sequel coming out being this terrible. And it was just absolutely mind-blowingly bad. And my wife is I've talked about it before, but my wife's a huge Wonder Woman fan, and she was so excited about this movie. She was so excited about seeing the Golden Eagle armor, and she absolutely despises this movie too.
Good thing you didn't buy that figurine.
Well, yeah, so we pre-ordered it and we watched this movie, and like the first thing she said to me after was like, "So we're gonna sell that hot toy, right?"
So did you?
It's not good. It's just such a weak story.
It started off okay in Themyscira, and then everything went downhill from there.
Well, and what sucks about it is that whole Themyscira sequence at the end of the day was totally unnecessary. Like, the good part was totally unnecessary to the rest of the movie.
Oh yeah, no, I don't disagree with you.
It was just like, we have to show that again because people like Themyscira.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
so here's to hoping the third one is at least somewhere in the middle.
If there is a third one, I still don't know if that's happening, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. Maybe it just. We'll see how Rogue Squadron goes, Patty Jenkins, and that'll. I'm hoping that the reasons behind Wonder Woman 84 being bad aren't to be faulted to her. Mm-hmm. But
after watching this movie, good.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say some of the blame definitely has to. I mean, I would imagine she got more creative freedom after the success of the first one doing this one. That's typically the way it goes. But there are also, we know that there's a lot of push and pull with WB and their executives, and so that the movie specifically just reeks of just them trying to fit a square peg in a round hole kind of thing.
Yeah, a really bad square peg.
With I was about to say something. I was about to make it
not funny at all.
No, never mind.
Say it.
Nope, I can't. I can't say it.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, what's your 10?
My 10. Well, wait. Oh yeah, because I was thinking. I was like, are we on 10? Yeah, because on dishonorable mention. Sorry, had a little brain fart there. Yeah, my 10 is Birds of Prey. I've only seen this movie once. I put this one above Wonder Woman 84 because there are a few sequences. Well, one sequence. Yeah, just one sequence that's actually enjoyable, and that's the Harley prison sequence. I I thought that one was pretty well done. Otherwise, this is another one of those movies that just did not land for me. I feel like it just fall it like on a base level of execution, it just doesn't succeed for me. And I thought that there was a lot of things on paper that should have worked, especially like obviously Margot Robbie is great as Harley Quinn. She was great in Suicide Squad, even though I have issues with that we'll get to later. But I think she's perfect for the character. I just feel like kind of what I feel like your sentiment's going to be later on whenever you get this movie, which is the Joker is a vital part of Harley Quinn's character. And it just is not as interesting. This whole like this movie came out at this time where they were, it's not a sequel and we're going to use these characters. We're going to change things. We're going to, it's all this like weird language.
Reboot.
Yeah.
Soft sequel.
They continue to use it with pretty much every movie that they put out, which is annoying. But just other than that, I just felt like it was kind of just, it's just such a nothing attempt at a movie. Like it's to me, it just wasn't enjoyable. I had high hopes for it. And I know that you didn't like a lot of the marketing in terms of like the posters and things like that. I actually appreciated a lot of that. And I thought it had a very cool marketing aesthetic. But when it came to the movie itself, all the action except for the prison sequence is just poorly done. And I don't know. I didn't feel like, I didn't really connect with any of the characters. And I feel like Ewan McGregor was kind of wasted. And I feel like that whole black mask, just him wearing the mask just felt so tacked on at the end. Like I'm pretty positive it was a reshoot that they added because I don't think he was actually going to be in the mask to begin with. I don't think they shot that till the end. It reeks the way it's inserted.
It
just
is
feels
in there
super tacked on.
In the middle of it as well. I realized that when I rewatched it. It was very brief, but anyway,
the shot of it, the shot of the mask,
him wearing it.
Yeah.
I mean that could have been a reshoot too.
Yeah. Well, because there was reports that he wasn't going to be wearing the mask, and then I think there was a lot of things that I feel like they were like.
There were a lot of reports about this movie.
Yeah, with the whole diamond dick pic thing.
DPs,
yeah. And I think it was probably the case. I feel like it was probably the case. So just, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say other than I just didn't enjoy it. And it just kind of hammered at my sensibilities to death. So that's about it.
No, I hear you. This is my number 9, actually. So
there you go. This is
good. We're pretty close. I think we're going to be a lot different in this next section here.
We're staggered,
but
but it makes sense for the show. So.
This movie, I had only seen it once. This is the second time I've watched it, and initially, I actually had this one below Wonder Woman 84. But upon rewatch, it's competently made, like technically, which is something I could not get past with 84. I don't mean story-wise. I just mean like from a technical standpoint. Like there's some cool sequences at the beginning with like Huntress's crime scene and then Rosie Perez's character kind of like walking the crime scene as the crime is actually happening in the past and that kind of deal. That prison sequence was cool. But yeah, it's just, first off, Cassandra Cain is just agonizing to watch act in this movie. It's really bad. Like,
well, it also, one thing I forgot to add, that was insert right here, which is the R rating just felt tacked on. Like they had a few F-bombs, but like other than that like there was just, it didn't utilize Norden.
I agree. The only thing that they did rate it, that would have fit that bill would be the Black Mask sequence with Zaz, where he's like cutting faces off.
Guy's face off.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally understand. Like it was R for the sake of being R. Like it's stuff that didn't have to be there. It kind of like it felt so forced in the sense of like, all right, this is the emancipation of Harley Quinn. Girls can be badass, like real badass. And it just didn't translate. But yeah, I was surprised that I moved this one up over 1980 Wonder Woman 1984. But yeah, it's just not and again, like what you mentioned, I feel like I've beat this to death, but Harley Quinn without the Joker is just, it's half the character to me.
Especially how they kind of like,
doesn't even mean that like she has to be with him in scenes, but like he has to be.
Oh yeah. Well, that tug and pull of their relationship and how toxic it is just
the psychological part. Yeah. That's what's
that's
their whole character is like, that's what the whole thing is. Other than that, she's just like a loon kind of that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Common said it best. That's your girl, Joker.
That's your girl, Joker.
He's right. It's his girl.
The itch in my crotch. All right. It's about to get...
No beef. No
beef. It's about to get really interesting here, Brandon. We're about to deviate a lot more, I think. As I was doing these rankings, I was like, I don't know. All right, you're up.
So you were all wondering where it was going to fall since it wasn't my honorable mention. But what number are we on? 9. My number 9 is Justice League. Now, granted, I don't like any of these movies so far. So I still don't like this movie. I like it a little bit more than the last two that I talked about. But it's not saying much.
This movie it's just so like I can't even judge this movie because there's so much pain associated with it.
There is a lot of pain. And honestly, Ryan, I feel like if not for ZSJL, I'd be a lot more hard on this movie because this is the movie that we would have.
Ironic.
Yeah. So it would definitely be at the bottom of my list. But just on a narrative, there's still things that there's still a lot of Zach's stuff in this movie that I can enjoy, that I could enjoy at the time. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a push and pull.
I hear you.
So
if I was, and my rankings here are very, very subjective. And I agree with you. If I was able to judge this movie like for what it is, it would probably be a little bit higher than it is, but I just can't do that because there's so much pain.
Well, true, but I feel like I would still, and this is a big statement, I'd still put this on over Wonder Woman 84 or Birds of Prey.
I wouldn't.
And I could at least have a drinking game to play along with it.
I could have drinking games for Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 84 too.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if it would be as enjoyable unless I had played the drinking game. I'd drink a lot before starting them, and then I could start them and keep drinking, and hopefully fall asleep a few minutes into it. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about Justice League to death. There's not a lot left to say about it. It's Affleck said it best. It's a horse's head with a cow's body, or however he said it. It's the most identity crisis of a movie, sliced together studio. I mean, the story, we've said the story so many
a couple times.
Yeah. But like I said, if I'm looking at it, just there's still things that, there's even parts of this movie that I had to admit that I liked over some things that were included in ZSJL. A few lines of dialogue that I preferred. So I don't hate it completely, but still low on my list, number 9. And that's all I'll say about that.
Cool.
Ryan, what's your number 9? Now you have to. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. What's your number 8, Ryan?
Number 8. This one is gonna be probably surprise you a little bit.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it Aquaman?
No.
No. Is it Shazam?
No.
Okay, you just tell me. I'm striking out. If I get one more guess, I strike out. I know how baseball works. See, Dad, I paid attention a little bit.
Yeah. I love how you put a southern accent on when you're talking to your dad, so he can understand you. Is that what it is?
So he understand me. Yeah.
This one actually just came out 2 weeks ago now, week and a half. Suicide Squad. I rewatched this one. When did I say I rewatched this? I don't know. Last weekend, I think, Saturday. And it was not kind. I texted you after we did our initial reactions to this movie, and I think I kind of got trapped a little bit in like, I don't know, like good conversation we were having. Like we were just enjoying. Scott was there, and Alan. We were all talking about this movie, and I feel like I kind of got started doing some rationalize. And I'm not saying that any other opinion's wrong, right or wrong, but I just kind of started doing some rationalizing to myself, and similar to the our conversation we had after we saw Justice League. We're like, yeah, this is good, right?
Yeah.
The humor just didn't there were a couple King Shark things that still landed for me, but the humor just totally fell flat on second screening for me. The Rick Flag stuff, as I paid more attention to that, really bothered me. And I talked about it on the episode, on our review. This movie feels so disconnected from everything else. And I know that was the intention, but I just don't like it. I don't prefer
disconnected as far as characters, or just
as far as the world
overarching.
Even, and we'll talk about it in a bit here, Suicide Squad. I loved the Gotham elements of Suicide Squad, and this was just very much let's start this thing on Monte Carlo, and it's control room and Monte Carlo. Let's keep it there. And it was, they had a couple of returning cast members, but even Joel Kinnaman said when he read the script, he felt like it was a different character, and talked to James Gunn about it, and was you just play it as a different character kind of thing. And I have such a hard time with that. I've talked to you about this before. I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff. And I get so I get so worked up, and probably unnecessarily so, but it's just how it is for me. You're either building this DCEU world or you're not. I don't like this kind of what we're talking about, soft reboot, or it just doesn't seem like they'll commit to anything. And it just comes through so glaring in all of these movies. But I just like Birds of Prey, I will say this is very well made technically. There's some really cool shots. Everybody talks about the Peacemaker helmet combat scene, which is cool.
Sure.
There's some cool cinematography stuff. Even very beginning with that reflection with Savant sitting there in the water. And it has a cool feel to it. I just, story wise, it doesn't get there for me. That's my numero ocho. So
doing Spanish now.
Brandon, You're up.
Well, let's see. Mine.
Can I guess?
What are we? Yeah, sure. You can guess.
Look at my list. Probably first Suicide Squad. Booyah! Nailed it.
Nailed it. Although you should have probably saw my preview down in our screen share thing, but
Sure.
it was already pulled up.
All right. Let's just pretend it wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, the first Suicide Squad for me, Ryan, I remember it fondly. Suicide Squad came out
very wet.
That was the second screening for me.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
First screening, we all met up. You'd already seen it. You and Chris, I think, saw it the night before.
This is the first time. This movie was the first time and last time I ever saw Brandon run.
Yeah, it's true. We ate dinner right outside the theater at a taqueria.
He left his wife with me sitting at the table.
I did. For a movie that I ended up not liking. Yeah, so yeah, I saw it, needed a second viewing. You and I watched it. It's another one of those rationalizing movies for me. I tried my best to like it. I wanted to like it, but at the end of the day,
seems like we do that a lot with DC movies.
It can be the case often. This one also came at a time where we had just seen BVS, and the Ultimate Edition, I believe, had come out by then. I'm not positive about that, but because BVS came out in March, this came out in August, I'm pretty sure.
I enjoyed the theatrical BVS too, so I was excited for this.
Yeah, I did too, but there were pacing things that bugged me, but
vital elements of the plot that were left out. But anyways,
yep. So yeah, I just feel like this movie, like nothing. I know that you like the first third of it a lot more than me. I don't like the needle drops. I don't like the character that you see that fly
situation.
Yeah, see it, dude. It's been here all night. Like it's walking around on my mic right now, and I really want to pop it, but internet
can't get internet. There's flies everywhere.
Oh gosh, we'll just power through. Just power through it. But no, I don't like the needle drops. I don't like the character bios. Everything just feels so crudely rushed and tacked on, and for good reason, because it was it's very much a hodgepodge of a movie in terms of them just changing directions at the 11th hour. I would love to see what was teased in that Comic-Con trailer initially, because I was super stoked about the tone. Yeah. Hashtag release the haircut. There are a few redeeming things about this movie. Obviously, it was Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, Will Smith's Deadshot. The other characters don't get a lot to do. I think Jai Courtney as Boomerang is well casted, but I don't know if he has much to do. They didn't utilize any of their abilities. Like they just, I don't know. Like
she throws him the gun at the end. That was about it.
That whole team up, that whole like together team moment at the end is awful. Yeah. It's so tacked on and just like, I don't know. And then I love the introduction to Enchantress when the whole like hand thing that they do is awesome. And then when she turns into the princess version, no. And the whole incubus things, I'm not a fan of that either. Now, I don't know, as far as the Leto performance, it's hard. Like, there are a lot of things that we joke about. We make fun of that performance a lot, I feel. There's not a lot of contextual stuff to really 100% judge it.
I think it's the dialogue that gets us.
Yeah.
Like when you combine poor dialogue with like the eccentric nature of that character, it can get out of hand real quick. Like,
yeah, that's honestly a thing that I've noticed, and I really like David Ayer as just like a person. Like, he seems like stand-up guy, but some of his dialogue is just it's very one note.
Yeah, it's almost too like too blue collar or too street. Like,
yeah.
At the when I rewatched this one at the end, when Enchantress is lying on the ground, she's like, "You don't have the
oh God, I hate that line." Also, like, there's so many of those cringy like Killer Croc's, "No, shorty, I'm beautiful," or whatever he says. What was the other one that he says? I was born in sewers. Y'all just tourists. And then
y'all just do it. He does this little
into the water. Oh man, thing. There's just a lot of things that I'm like cringing at. Mostly dialogue for sure.
Sure.
We've already done the want no beef, that whole thing. Like, there's a lot of just lines that are like, and a lot of Leto's performance, because it's so piecemealed together.
Yeah,
it just comes across as like Leto being Leto. Like, he's got this reputation of method acting at this point, and there's a lot of history with this movie of him on set doing hijinks and stuff. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. It could have been just something they said just to build up the hype for the movie. But it definitely
smart.
definitely the way it's presented is just not, in my opinion, not super complimentary to his performance. I feel like there's a performance there that we haven't seen that's a lot more interesting.
I agree, and we got a taste of what the performance could be with some meaningful dialogue in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yep. And I love that performance.
Agree.
So, except for one line.
Agree.
Yeah, but we'll get it. We might get that. I don't know. Might not bring it up. Not really worth bringing up.
Reach around, get it. I get it.
Yep. That's the one. Nope. That must have been David Ayer's input. Okay, moving on.
Oh man.
So yeah, that Suicide Squad, that is my number 8. Ryan, I guess we're on number 7.
7. Okay. Do you want to guess on this one?
No.
All right. My number 7 is Aquaman. I am so hot and cold on this movie, like unbelievably hot and cold. For example, I was watching this movie in preparation for doing these rankings, and I got to the desert part, and I just fast forwarded through it because I'm like, I can't do
the whole
it.
thing.
I cannot watch it. I literally fast forwarded from the minute that they were on the plane together until Manta shows up, or they're looking through the telescope.
Gotcha.
Because I was in theaters, and I like that whole sequence. I just like felt my like insides turning. Oh, so bad. But at the same time, there are parts of this movie that I freaking love, like Patrick Wilson as Orm. My God, like perfect casting. He's awesome. The throne room sequence with Orm, where Momoa's chained up, and he like charges at it, or Orm says like he's always wanted to meet him or whatever, and And then Momoa like jumps up at him, and the chains like catch him right before he gets to him, and he's like, "But now that I see you here, I'm conflicted." And he's like right in his face, like it's so badass. The fight sequence at the end, obviously on the where everybody's watching between him and Aquaman and Orm. Momoa's great. The costume design, except for Mira, is great.
The wig.
Yeah. But there's just the freaking I feel like I've been beat over the head with awful humor in these movies, and this one's like the apex for me with that. like eating the rose and oh god, I hate it. I can't do it.
Yeah,
but like I said, I'm a huge fan of Throne of Atlantis, the animated DC animated, and this movie at times feels like it's just like an adaptation of that live action adaptation, which I love. And I'm very excited about the second one. Again, I'm super nervous about the humor. It's just not. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like, it's poorly written. It's poorly timed. It sucks any like power and emotion out of scenes that could be great, just for a cheap chuckle.
Yep.
And general audience, I don't know, catering.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's stuff that, again, it's like a 50-50 movie for me. And I guess that's kind of why it lands in the middle. I cannot get over the humor stuff, but I freaking love the action elements. And from a technical standpoint, beautiful freaking movie. Amazing what they were able to do with this film.
And the most successful movie of the DCU.
True.
Financially.
True.
So,
but yeah, that's my number 7.
Cool.
What you got?
So, my number 7 is The Suicide Squad.
Okay. So you had your last one was Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just watched this. I've seen it twice now.
Mm-hmm.
And it improved. I was like, I enjoyed it the first time I watched it, and the second time it didn't really go down. It was mostly the same.
Yeah.
I still have the issues with the humor. We talked about it on our review. If you haven't watched it, go give it a watch. I like you though. I feel like this is a very well-made movie technically. Surprisingly, some of the humor did land for me. Some of it didn't. It's kind of 50-50.
More dumb friends.
Yeah, there's that one. Most of the humor that landed for me was weirdly Idris Elba's stuff. We talked about a little bit about that, but I was thinking about another when I don't even remember what he said to him. Oh, whenever Peacemaker is like, unless it's effing whatever he says, and he goes,
like, he's
"That's
right.
True.
So true.
That's true." Yeah. But yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff. As far as like, I wish it had a better villain.
Yeah.
But I feel like with this kind of movie, it's probably by design that because you're dealing with a bunch of villains, you have to make a villain that's like, it's whenever you're dealing with characters that are all shades of gray, it's like, okay, they want you to root for the people that are bad. So you got to have someone that's typically just comically bad.
Sure.
Unless like Game of Thrones pulls that off pretty well to where it's not like, unless you get to the later seasons, but when you're like they always had like the little fingers or the what you call it, like Joffrey or like what the guy that the Bolton guy.
Sure.
So they always had these characters that you just hated, and then you had characters that you would flip flop back and forth, where you would hate them at one point, love them at another point. And I think that's kind of the treatment that you have to do with something like this. And so instead of them giving you a villain that you just have to, like, you undoubtedly hate, they just kind of give this, like, I guess they try and go the sympathetic approach with Starro that he's been experimenting on to make the villain
very weakly, in my opinion. That actually bothered me when I watched it the second time. Like, I don't know, it was just kind of like a throwaway line. It reminded me, in a sense, of the for Darkseid line in Justice League.
Yeah. No, I mean it's pretty paper thin. But that's not a thing that I'm saying is successful about it. That's a weakness on the movie's part for me. But just in terms of like action, I think and like making, like Polka Dot Man a cool character, and honestly having some great moments with the just out of nowhere connection with his mom, and
that's your mom.
It's your mom. Yeah, all that stuff's great to me. I love that stuff in the movie. Harley's great in it. Didn't necessarily buy the thing with her and the president, but felt out of place. But yeah, I mean, overall enjoyed it, and I honestly I do enjoy it more than the theatrical Suicide Squad, which is not something that I assumed.
I think most people probably would say that at this point.
Sure. Well, I mean, I just didn't. The nature of the movie itself, of how we got to this movie, I was like, I feel like I know what they're going to do with this, and I'm not going to like it. And surprisingly, I enjoyed it way more than I expected to. So, but yeah, that is my number 7. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
It's important. The article's important. Because if you didn't have the in front of it, it would just be Suicide Squad, which is my number 6.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was trying to slowly tee it up there for you, but it's okay.
Well, since I don't have your list, I can't really prep them. So
no, I know.
I'm doing this with you as quick as possible.
Yeah, I rewatched this one as well in preparation for this. I don't know why I'm saying that, because I watched all of them pretty much. Mm-hmm. I've told you before, this movie is a tale of two halves for me, and it's absolutely that way for me again. Second half of this movie is extremely, extremely weak. At times unwatchable. But I love the first half of this movie. And I understand that it's not that what David Ayer was going to do with it is probably very different. But I love
radio songs, he said.
I know. And I love the soundtrack in it as well.
I like the soundtrack. I just don't like the use of them in the movie.
Gotcha. Well,
they're just nonstop.
I like that. I don't know. I like the first half. I like the music in it.
Here's the thing.
I love
not to like cut you off, but the difference between, so the reason we got this version of the Suicide Squad, because ironically they were trying to make this movie into a James Gunn, like a Guardians of the Galaxy version of the DC Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. And then they in turn hired James Gunn to make his version. And I feel like the reason why Gunn's music choices and needle drops work so well in his movies is because he has those planned from the get-go, that this is what he's doing. Whereas in Ayer's version, for me, they're obviously just tacked on, and they just stick out. Even though I like the songs on their own, the soundtrack is good, I just don't think it works in the movie. That's just me.
I don't know. I'm kind of the opposite with that. I very much like the the resume delivery with the characters. I like the style of it, and it was such a cool. I don't know. It felt like something that I hadn't seen before in a comic book movie. I love just the nature of the Suicide Squad. I like the down and dirty side of this movie. I feel like that's what the Suicide Squad should be. I felt like that was something that was a little bit lacking in the Suicide Squad. It just felt a little bit straight laced. And frankly, as much as we make fun of the Joker dialogue and whatever, the sequence with Harley and the Joker in the chemical plant, like there's a part of me, like as a comic book fan, that I'm like, holy cow, this is awesome that we're seeing this live action. Just I love the dynamic, like seeing that dynamic on screen. And this movie is the reason I have such a issue with these other movies that Harley's in, because that was the push and pull between those two is so compelling, and I just feel like she's a stripped down version of herself without that. I love Will Smith is great in this movie. Again, it's almost like I love the introduction of the Suicide Squad, but I hate the story of this movie.
Yeah.
But I also love, a big part of it for me, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is this movie feels very organic, as a part of the like underbelly of the movies that were established before, in BVS and Man of Steel. The death of Superman thing, kind of this like nightlife Gotham. Everything is very like focused like in the shadows, darkness of Gotham kind of arena. And even, Batman was included, not necessarily some of his strongest scenes, but the connective tissue was there, and it was compelling for me. And even though I wasn't a huge fan of the story of this movie, like I felt like it really did a lot for building that world that I wanted to see built out. Even though the main story wasn't necessarily, is intended to be tied into it, but in the theatrical version, it wasn't necessarily tied into kind of like the big overarching campaign of the DCEU. But yeah, I was expecting to, when I rewatched these, it's so weird. My top 5, like, kind of set. I was expecting 6, 7, 8, the Suicide Squad, Aquaman, and Suicide Squad to be reversed, actually. So the Suicide Squad 6, Aquaman 7, Suicide Squad 8, and that ended up not being the case. But yeah, that's what I got from number 6.
Very interesting, Ryan.
Yeah.
All interesting choices.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what are we on? 6?
6.
My number 6 is Aquaman.
That's Fish Man.
Yeah. That's another great line, isn't it? I honestly, you and I are pretty. I think I like this more. Obviously, it's higher on my list, but I think that the things that we have as far as pros and cons on our list are pretty much exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
I think
the extremity of which we.
yeah, I guess. I've watched this one a lot actually since theaters, and a lot of that has to do with it being like kids tend to gravitate towards it. Like Luna, my nephews, they all love it. I feel like every time my nephew Slate came over, he wanted to watch this movie, and it's just something. It's like one of those background movies that you can just kind of have on and you watch a few, you get like sucked in a lot of those set pieces. It's such a big, like,
It's
epic
pretty ass movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous looking. It's got tons of different locales, lots of different, great action sequences, lots of cool
Nicole
world
Kidman on
building.
set.
Yeah. And they shot their shot with this movie. I feel like, James Wan has said before that he did, rightfully so, he didn't think there'd ever be another chance to make another Aquaman movie. So he just put everything in the kitchen sink in there. Mm-hmm. And I think that, surprisingly, it works pretty well. It doesn't feel overstuffed. Considering how many different set pieces, how many different characters are in there, villains, whatever. Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, it all kind of comes together, except for the humor. The humor just feels so tacked on and subverting of any kind of, like you were saying, all the serious moments are just undone.
Another one
so
that
many
stood out
times
to me was the when they're in the I don't know, the ruins or whatever, and I could have just peed on it. like it was such a cool set piece. I don't know. It just, that stuff just like it's like getting like your hair yanked on when you're like really focused on something. Like it's just like, what? Yeah. I don't know. It pulls me. Yeah.
It's like, it just, I mean, it's not surprising considering, again, we look at when this movie came out, the players that were involved on the executive level, and this just screams, okay, we gotta insert some levity every, there's probably some sort of, formula. They were like, all right, every 5-10 minutes, we got to have a joke. And it just feels, just reeks of like, let's try and just somebody, like they brought in somebody to punch up the dialogue, so to speak.
Don't hire that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
What makes me nervous is I can't remember if it was Patrick Wilson or is it Yahya Abdul-Mateen?
Yahya Abdul-Mateen. The third thing.
Someone, one of them mentioned that Aquaman 2 is going to be even funnier, and I was like,
yeah,
oh boy,
those are not the words I want to hear. Unless there's a different. I mean, they're organically funny versus tagged on funny are two different things.
Yeah. So, organically funny is what we got in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I just don't think that we're gonna get that kind of humor. I don't think that's what they intend to do, but who knows? I hope not.
We'll see. We will see. And I loved Black Manta as a visual character. I thought Yahya was not, like, his acting was, and he's a great actor. Like, he's been in stuff that I've enjoyed him in, especially like Watchmen and a few other things. But this role, he was, and it probably comes down to his dialogue and some of his delivery. But
it was just all anger.
Yeah, it just one note, and also just not great. But he's not in the movie a ton. But the stuff that he's given is just not good. But anyway,
a lot of the second one, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah. So that is my number 6.
Nice. All right. Number 5. Shazam!
What?
Yeah. This movie's great. We've made the transition.
This is it. This is the crux.
Yeah. It is funny, man. Like there is a very hard line of like when these, like, Shazam is a great movie. I love this movie. I don't have a ton to really criticize about it. I just love the Snyderverse more. and that's no knock on this movie. It's just something that has really resonated with me. But anyways, yeah, this movie's great. I was super excited about this movie from announcement. I've always loved the Shazam character. And this is a movie where the character lends itself to comedy. Like,
Yeah,
he's a kid. Like, you can play around with that kind of stuff. And they do it. Sandberg does it excellently. And very well done on a very modest budget as well.
Yeah. That would honestly be the only negative that I could draw to this movie is sometimes the budget shows.
Sure.
They stretch it. They make it go up like a very long way, but there's a few moments it's like, yeah, it's a little CW.
Yep. And the lack of Henry Cavill at the end, but we won't hold that against it.
He was there, wasn't he? They just didn't show his head.
Yeah, totally. But he almost made up for it with the Sandberg almost made up for it with the video he put up where the neck is
like waving. Yeah. He is the best. We talk about it a lot, but God, please go follow David F. Sandberg. He is
Tone Smasher. Yeah.
Anytime
he does, something happens with these Shazam movies that we like start to question or we don't like, he creates some piece of content that either makes fun of himself or makes fun of the situation that just like, I don't even care that I didn't like that part anymore.
Right.
It's almost worth it just for the piece of content after the fact.
Yep.
But yeah, Zachary Levi's great as Shazam. And what I was kind of concerned about going into this movie was that translation from Asher Angel to Zachary Levi, like that they were going to feel like they could actually be the same person. Obviously not appearance wise, but like what they're saying, how they're acting or interacting with other characters, and it's seamless, flawless. The comedy is awesome in this movie. There's even a touch more. Sandberg has a horror sensibility, so there's touches of that in there with the 7 Deadly Sins that like I wasn't expecting for certain things to get as dark as they did. Which you know we all like. We all like a little darkness, you and me.
Mm-hmm. We do.
And every time I watch this, I'm like, why didn't they release this thing at Christmas? Because it's just a great Christmas movie. Like, it's a great one to put on that time of year.
No, I agree. I mean, it's probably well, they had Aquaman coming out at Christmas, so
yeah,
this one came out in April, I think. Yeah, it was
just such a great
opportunity.
Like,
yeah,
I would call this.
The problem is it would have done even worse if it came out at Christmas. As far as because there's too much competition.
Well, it's a Christmas movie now for me. All right.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Anything else you want to say about Shazam?
No, it's great. I love it. I'm looking forward to Fury of the Gods.
Same. That was your number 5. Guess what? My number 5. What? Also Shazam.
Nice.
Yeah. No, I love this movie too. This is another one, just like Aquaman is another one that my kid and nephews love to watch. And it's one of those perfect movies with it reminds me a lot of like an Amblin entertainment movie from, the 80s and 90s where it's like that kid element is done so well. The casting is just, great across the board. Every kid is great in their role. And that's something that's super important with a movie like this. Like you can really ruin your movie if you mess up that, because that's tough.
I was watching. I love Freddy in this movie. He's arguably my favorite character. And I just, for whatever reason, this last screening I had, I appreciated the Adam Brody transition so much. Like, again, with Levi and
see, that's the one that I believe.
Yeah,
those two are the same. Two sides of the same coin, whatever it is. whatever those sayings are.
I won't tell her. I'll keep going.
I don't necessarily agree with you on the Zachary Levi Asher Angel.
Interesting.
They feel a little dissimilar to me in their portrayals, but it doesn't take me out of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this movie. Like I said, everybody's great in the
I
part.
laughed out loud at the. I was sitting up here working, and I was just listening to it. I laughed out loud. I felt like an idiot. But the sequence where they're at the park, and it's right as they're testing his powers and stuff, he goes and Shazam saves the woman from the first thing. And Freddy walks up, or she goes, "Who are you?" And Freddy walks up. He goes, "His name is Thundercrack."
Get woke, bro.
It sounds like a butt thing, dude.
Yeah, that movie's great. And yeah, I mean, Savannah is great. And like you were saying, the whole 7 Deadly Sins, that horror element is like it is that boardroom scene. Yeah, is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, like you were saying, the comedy works so well. It's obviously, it fits in a movie like this, but just, and we also were excited when we saw the initial trailers. They were teasing, they have the Affleck battering, and they had the Man of Steel, like the Zero, whatever, what is it called?
Newspaper or Time magazine.
Yeah, but what is it? What is the event called? Something Zero.
Zero.
Isn't it called? What is that actual like? Anyway.
Oh man.
It's not Ground Zero, but it's like something else. Anyway, it's okay. I don't have to figure it out. Somebody will let us know.
Stupid, Brandon. I should know this.
But yeah, I love all that stuff. And no, like I said, I think they make very good use of the budget. I think it's super well made, and I'm so excited to see what happens with the second one.
And there's
especially now that the whole family is like, what are they going to do now that everybody, it's like you had that big reveal at the end. Now you start off the second movie with them all, having this
family
power. So
they also pack a ton of heart into this movie, which is great.
Yeah.
The whole family element, the foster kid thing, the parents are great. So it's cool, man. Like this is one of those movies where you can get the laugh out loud humor, but you also there's a lot of feels in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. Look at us.
Indeed.
Fives.
Well, that's both of our number 5s.
Yeah. All right.
So we have 4 left. I wonder how we're going to fall. I feel like, I don't know. We'll see.
It will be interesting. Like, we know, obviously, they're all the same top 4, but it'll be interesting how it'll.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess my number 4?
Wonder Woman.
It is. It is Wonder Woman.
Well, you know what? It's also mine. So let's talk about it together.
Nice.
Now, there was no scenario where this movie was going to go ahead of BVS, Man of Steel or Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, in my opinion. Yeah. I knew that kind of going into this. So I'm interested to see where the last 3 fall for us.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
I was shocked. And I don't think I saw. I think I saw this with Chris and Katie.
Yeah. And your sister.
I was. I was shocked. I love when I walked out of this movie. I was like, I freaking love this movie, and I still do. I rewatched it again 2 days ago. It just holds up so well. I love it feels, again, it's one of those things like with Suicide Squad, it feels so connected, it feels so organic to that world. The tie-in with Bruce and the photo at the beginning, and even just the nature of the World War setting, like that kind of muted color, like it felt like it fit in so well with Man of Steel and BVS, like from an aesthetic standpoint. Is a lighter hearted film at times for sure, but again, done well. And I the more I think about this movie and I think about Wonder Woman 84 and seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League, the humor in this movie and Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel, like it's all the same kind of brand.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel.
If you haven't noticed, we're very particular about our humors.
It's true. But it can pull you out or draw you in. A lot of times with DC, it pulls you out.
Yeah. Here lately, for sure.
Yeah. But that makes me think even more so that Zach was involved a lot more in the development of this movie. Which makes
even
me
on a technical level.
Yeah, for
when
sure.
you look at this one versus 84,
the action sequences and stuff. Yeah.
It's a different level.
You
got Damon Caro involved in this one, and you don't have Damon Caro on the other one.
Everything in this is
obvious.
so physical and so like environmental and kinetic. Like when the No Man's Land sequence, like the little speed ramping they do with her flipping her hair, and she comes up and they do the bullet, her taking first bullet off, and then she kind of everybody engages fire on her, and she's holding that shield, and you just like see the shield being like pelted with bullets, and it's like rattling around. Like you actually feel like like it's happening. It's not like
if I was gonna ding that movie, that's one of the parts that I actually have issues with. Just the execution of that frontal camera, her walking in slow-mo. I just feel like the environment looks fake, and the bullet time stuff doesn't look as well done as, say, some of the other slow-mo bullet time type stuff I've seen, especially even with Wonder Woman. But once it transitions into her running and her, knocking the grenade missiles or whatever away, and then taking the fire for them to, move out. From there on, I love it. But that first,
I get you. Yeah. That whole sequence for me, like just the chills from where she's like, I'm going to go take care of this. And they're all like, like, what are you talking about?
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. The emotion in that scene would carry me through a lot. Like of any infidelities I see with technical stuff. And that's I don't know, man. That's the stuff that is important to me with these movies. If you haven't noticed my ranking system, like,
yeah,
I love the deconstruction stuff, which we obviously get a ton of with Zach's stuff, but the emotion that kind of pulls into the story, that's the stuff that I'm just drawn to. And I get that other people don't go to superhero movies to see that kind of stuff, but for me, that's where the money is. But yeah, and this movie too, technical level, very pretty movie. All the Themyscira stuff's awesome. We've talked a little bit about weaknesses with like the flashback stuff at the beginning, which I think is I feel the same way after rewatching it. It's kind of probably the weakest part of the movie for me. Like if I was sectioning it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this movie. It's my number 4 for a reason. I love Shazam, and I love this one even more. So
yeah, I all your sentiments ring true for me as well. As far as I think I remember when you came out of this movie, you were like, DC really needed a win right now, and just a critical win on a mainstream level. And I saw it a couple of days. I saw it in Miami actually, and was like, all right, that was good. I enjoyed that, and every time I've watched it since, it's gotten better for me. I love the setting. It was a good break, especially compared to just all the other superhero movies, not just DC stuff, but like just Marvel, whatever. Like to have this set in World War I, which a lot of movies don't hit upon. It's usually World War II. And yeah, I felt like that was now what I've loved to have seen. Was it Crimean War that they had initially pitched?
Crimean War,
Crimean. Chimera. Chimera.
I won't tell Al again.
It's okay. We'll just move past it. And I just up and down, besides, a few things like we're talking about with that, a few execution little, things that kind of hurt me. On the whole, though, I think it's great. Irk me. Gotcha. Casting is great. I freaking love Antiope. I really would love to see, like, we got little glimpses of her, like not very, very briefly in 84 and briefly also in ZSJL, but I would love to see more of her. Maybe a movie. I know they talked about an Amazonian like movie at some point. I'd love to see like a Connie Nielsen and Robin Wright.
Great, man.
They're
like, good God.
Yeah, they're all great.
Say what you want about Zack Snyder, but as far as casting goes, just give the man the keys and just let him pick people.
For sure. But yeah, Chris Pine also, man. I think Chris Pine is the glue to this movie. And it's a shame that they felt like they had to bring him back for the sequel because they kind of undermined a lot of things. His send-off was great, and I don't think they utilized that. They tried to play into it, but it just falls flat on many levels in the sequel.
Like asides that he has with her throughout the movie, especially at the end where they're on the airstrip, where he runs up and is trying to like plead with her when she, like not their final one, but their second to last one. I'm like, God, this is freaking great.
Yeah, he's perfect. He's perfect for that role. And you believe it. Like their relationship is very believable. It's very like their chemistry together would have to be very, very tight for you to believe their relationship and how quickly it progresses. Usually that can come across like a little shoehorned, but for whatever reason, I buy it with the two of them.
No, I agree.
So
agreed. And then they brought him back for the rapey Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah. Well, we already talked about.
She gives the dude that look when he walks out of at the end when he walks out of the store, like, I know you.
Oh gosh, what a stupid angle to take that.
Dumb. The little scenes in there where he's like looking at himself in the mirror, and, like messing with his face and stuff. Like, all I see is you.
I don't get it, but
so bad.
Whatever.
Like, you could have just brought him back. Like, the thing can do anything.
Everybody else is manifesting things everywhere else. Why couldn't you manifest Steve?
Sure.
No, we're just gonna make somebody else Steve. Okay.
In a really weird way. All right.
Anyway,
now these last three, we've reached the. I guess unsurprisingly, we've reached the Zack Snyder films, and of course, you and myself, our top three are Zack Snyder movies.
Yep.
So
you go,
this will
because
get interesting.
technically it's your turn. So this is your number 3.
Yeah. Do you want to try and guess or no? Let me just tell you.
If I had to guess, I would say Zack Snyder's Justice League.
No, I knew you were
No.
gonna guess Zack Snyder's Justice League. Oh man! And you know what? It was that way in my rankings until yesterday. Man of Steel. And
well, look at you.
The perfect time for that drop.
It is. I was waiting on it.
Yeah. So I know we kind of had this discussion when.
Well, you know what, Ryan? This is also my number 3, so we're going to talk about it together.
Nice. Look at us. Look at us. I know we kind of had this discussion when ZSJL came out, kind of after we wrapped up our review series. We talked about like how we would rank these 3 movies. And at the time, I put ZSJL 3 because there were parts of this movie that, like, at the end of the day, like, in a sense, it was a patch job in certain parts. Like, it wasn't like he wasn't able to, like, from start to finish, create the movie that he wanted to create. And there's times in there where, like, whether it was CG that wasn't quite finished, or like like we've talked about, where they had to reuse footage or stuff like that. Like, Man of Steel was just such a, like, from the minute that freaking Syncope logo comes on screen and they start playing the music where he's being born, to the last sequence of the movie, like, that movie's pretty much flawless for me. There's and just like with BVS, there's little pieces of dialogue here and there where we always, like, we'll make fun of it just because, it's hard to make a perfectly perfect movie, like every single line perfect. Like, every movie's got like a little.
What's some lines that we quote?
For Man of Steel, I always go
there's
BVS.
obviously we'll look at you. We already played that one.
Look at you.
We do that one a lot. On a farm, we say that a lot. Usually in reference to me growing up on a farm.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I rewatched, and I've seen ZSJL a ton of times now, but I kind of had some time pass between the last time I watched it and when I watched it the other day. And dude, that movie already is aging like fine wine for me.
Wait, are we not talking about Man of Steel?
No, I'm explaining my flip here.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the jump took place for Man of Steel and BVS. Full disclosure, those are the 2 movies that I did not watch before we did this review, just because I've seen them tons of times. For all I know, I could go watch Man of Steel and be like, God, I freaking love this movie, and they could flip again. But yeah, Man of Steel, this was coming off of all the Dark Knight run and Dark Knight series, Dark Knight Rises. And I obviously a huge Superman fan. That's been made very clear on this channel. And I love the Nolan films, but when I watch comic book movie, like especially a Superman movie, I want to see other worlds. I want to see like crazy power. Like I don't want it to feel like, I don't want to see a grounded Superman, like Superman movie. That being said, emotionally, Snyder pulls that off freaking perfectly in this movie. You obviously can't relate to this guy from on a physical standpoint. But somehow he makes this character feel so
It's very endearing.
human and flawed and like struggling so much. And the arc that this guy goes throughout this movie, beginning to end, is just crazy to me. I love instead of doing, the traditional like origin, starting out with just the showing the thing land in the cornfield and they find the baby, and like doing callbacks to his childhood and like pivotal moments in his childhood.
Well, they took the same kind of narrative structure that Goyer did with Batman Begins. Yeah, he does that here, and it works really well. It's
just like for Superman, for me as a Superman fan, like with Batman, there's a lot of the stories they just kind of like pick up. Other than Nolan, like it just picks up. Like there'll be maybe a flashback of his parents dying, but like just picks up. He's Batman. With Superman, literally every single iteration that you see in live action like starts with the cornfield thing. Like it's just, I don't like up to Man of Steel, like that's just what people did. So it was so refreshing, and talked about earlier, like the emotional side of things with this movie, like Jonathan Kent stuff, man. Every time I watch it, and I've seen this movie, Brandon, 50 times at least. Like to this day, any of the scenes where Jonathan Kent's in there, like you're either going to get me tearing up or you're just going to get me full on weeping. It's right so powerful. Yeah, and I love this movie from start to finish.
I was sold on the Jonathan Kent. Well, I was sold on many things, but especially Kevin Costner's portrayal in that trailer. "You are my son." That whole line was like, oh man, that's man. The thing with this movie is I could have cared less about Superman up until this movie. Just didn't. He's one of those Mary Sue type characters historically, where he's just so overpowered and he's got this one weakness. And okay, it's just, it wasn't interest on paper and any kind of execution prior. I was not I've never, all the Donner Superman stuff, never really cared for those. But this movie,
it's interesting. That's why I gravitated towards Smallville, actually, when I was growing up, was because it was not as well done as these movies, but like it was him as a kid, like with the struggles of growing up as Superman. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I never watched Smallville, but it was just didn't hit me at the time where I would have. No, I just this movie really takes that immigrant story essentially and just an orphan story as well, but just like makes it so like makes this character super relatable, like you were saying, not on a physical level, but just as a person, like it humanizes him. And I just think Cavill is
burden that he feels too, like
well,
way you can relate to that, even though it's just such an like obscene thing.
What's so great about it is they play both sides, because you've got Jor-El basically pushing him to expose himself to the world, and you've got Pa Kent not wanting his son to essentially be crucified. It's very much a Christ parallel. And I mean, they obviously have those connections, there's lots of Christ symbology in there. And that's another thing that draws me to this character as well. But yeah, I mean, I just think Cavill was perfect. Casting across the board. Cavill, Pa Kent, Ma Kent, Jor-El, everybody. Like, Michael Shannon. I think that Amy Adams is Lois
in this movie too. Michael Shannon, like, great Zod.
And then Feora is like the unsung hero of this movie. That was when I saw this in theaters. I was like, Feora was freaking awesome. I would love to see more of her. This is another movie that continues to improve every time I watch it. And it's so baffling to me that people don't give it the credit that it deserves, because
you know what's amazing, Brandon? We just spent like 20 minutes talking about this Zack Snyder movie, and you know what? We were talking about story and emotion, and we haven't even talked about any of the visuals. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's true. Because those are just like things that are like, that's like secondary to these movies. Like, you expect great visuals with Snyder, but
that's the thing though. Like, that's the hang up with people with Snyder is like, yeah, he makes stuff looks cool, but doesn't have any heart, or it's such a bad storyteller. That's literally like the first thing that we went to when we talked about this movie.
All right. Sounds like Al.
You hang out with him too much.
I'm just gonna play it for him.
You know what you are? What? You're difficult. Really difficult. You're a difficult man.
Yep. And
why are you the way that you are?
Okay.
You got to be nervous about. You're a damn kid.
Well, you got to be nervous about. You're a damn kid.
Still love Al.
That's great.
You're wrong. But yeah, I mean, I recently watched this with Luna, and again, from a parent standpoint, I've never understood people's hang up with the Pa Kent death scene.
It's an idyllic Superman crap. Nobody can get down, like, dissect this character and be okay with it. I don't understand it. I don't get it, Brandon. I don't get it.
I mean, that take to me as a parent, and I didn't see this as a parent initially, but upon more rewatches after becoming a parent, just seeing you start to see the Pa Kent point of view, like, so sympathetically, just like his whole, like, if you have a kid that is like this, and you would be so fearful of what the world would do to a being like this.
Sure.
And I don't know, man. It hits his whole stance with him, that whole arc, especially where it ends in Zack Snyder's Justice League with Pa Kent. It is great. It's great.
Great. Beauteous.
So, yeah, we could gush over this movie all night if we wanted to, but we've got two more movies to gush over.
We do still need to do. I know we're going to do our Lord of the Rings series review. We do need to go back and review Man of Steel and BVS, just to have it in the archives.
It's true.
We talk about it so much. Yeah,
we'll get there.
All right, down to number two.
Two more. Yeah,
down to number 2. Do you want to guess, Brandon?
Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Correct. You've guessed correctly.
That is also my number 2, Ryan.
What?
Yeah, it's true. It is true.
Let's talk about it together. Well, let's start with the fact that the story behind this movie is just, like, shouldn't have happened on so many levels, good and bad.
No, the fact that we have this is amazing. I was just thinking about this the other day when I was making this list and thinking about Justice League and then how we got to this movie. I was like, man, I was actually telling David this the other day. I said, we were talking about just like how toxic Twitter is and nothing ever gets a comment. I said, nothing ever productive comes of Twitter except for Zack Snyder's Justice League.
And you know what? That makes it all worth it.
It's true. It's true.
Oh man, it's so true. Yeah, man. This movie is awesome. I was thinking about I think I sent you the video. I posted it on Twitter of like us right before we press play, watching this movie in your theater. And dude, like, I don't know if I mean, I do know. Like, I have never been so excited for a movie ever.
No.
Like, there was so I think you've said this before. There was so much foreplay for this movie.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
yeah, and honestly, will probably never ever happen again in terms of excitement level.
Sure.
And it's, I mean, and what's amazing is the hype. It lived up to the hype and
Absolutely.
exceeded,
Yep.
which is, I
And
don't
was nervous
understand.
about that. I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
talked
same.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a movie that never should have happened. And you know how much I mean, you can see in our rankings here how much we love this Justice League should have been Pentology. Brandon and I, and we've talked about it before, when we saw Justice League, we had a phone call the next day while we were working. We were on the phone for 7 hours. 7 hours. It's not an exaggeration.
No.
7 hours. I went to lunch with Brandon. Brandon went to lunch with me.
Yeah.
Just trying to like
Justify.
Yeah. And
Pun intended.
this is coming off of, and at this point you can kind of tell what our number one is, but this is coming off of our favorite comic book movie we've ever seen. And what we saw, like, just trying to wrap our minds around what the hell happened. Like, what does this mean for the future? Like, yeah. I don't know. I always remember that phone call. We were just like literally spent 7 hours talking about it.
Yeah. Well, what's sad, like we saw it at a preview screening, and then we still had our IMAX tickets a couple of days later. And yeah, I mean, in hindsight, we were trying to reason away things that we obviously had major issues with. And I remember we also jumped on a phone call.
Thank you.
Yeah. But we jumped on a phone call the night that we saw it, also doing that.
I was pacing around my bedroom, just like doing a U back and forth around the bed. And Katie was just like, Ryan, you've got to lay down. Like,
oh man. But we've already talked about Justice League. Let's talk about this movie. But here's the thing. Yeah. We've talked about this before as well, but this movie is the perfect storm of so many terrible things that happened to get us to this point. The fact that we got 4 hours of this movie, we should have never gotten 4 hours of any movie.
Even if things
that doesn't happen, period.
Yeah. We would not have gotten to see what we saw here.
Yeah.
There's no scenario where WB releases a 4-hour Justice League movie in theaters.
Not even a director's cut. Like, I don't even think they would have released it in that form, because they wouldn't have finished it.
Sure.
Yeah. Because
it's true.
There's too much to have finished for 4 hours, just VFX wise. This movie, like you were saying, with like some of the like slightly unpolished VFX, like that stuff kind of, you give it a pass considering the circumstances, and especially considering, like, I mean,
they
think
turned
of
this sucker around in what, 8 months?
Half the time that they needed, essentially, is what they said.
Like,
yeah. And also, though, it goes to show, like, they didn't just turn this thing around sloppily. Like they really put the time and attention and really wanted to do right by Zack for this. Because the same
Artistic
people that worked on
integrity
this.
upheld. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I mean, there's some like, we watched it, what, 4 times together that weekend that you came up at 5 times? Did we watch it 5 times?
I have a picture of me going, and Chris is going.
Okay. Man, 5 times. Yeah. So, and it just continued like it doesn't feel like 4 hours for one. Everything just moves along at a brisk pace, and all the character introductions, the chapters, the way it's set up is perfect. The fact that it's 4 hours also like allows for so many great small little moments. We always talk about
stuff like, oh my god.
We always talk about that's the little song. Yeah.
Yeah.
The siren type song that they sing for Aquaman.
Which that scene is as much for that as for Martha Kent's scene at the grave with the truck afterwards. Like,
right.
That's the thing.
Yeah. This is another thing where needle drops work. Like all the music choices that they layer on top of this stuff has just like Zack, it always has double meaning. Yeah. All that like it just allowed this movie to take its time and really just let it lets it breathe, and
you can marinate in this movie.
Yeah. And there's all the character stuff is just like, man, it's so layered, which is what you expect, what we expect from a Snyder thing. It's a lot of showing and not telling, but to me, that's what's brilliant about his movies. Like it's not forceful exposition.
I saw a tweet either today or yesterday. I can't remember who it was, but it's a screenshot of Darkseid reaching for the lantern ring. And the tweet said, like, imagine explaining the context of this scene to somebody in 2013 when Man of Steel came out. Like,
yeah, I know, right? Oh, man. And that's another thing. Like, Steppenwolf is such a layered, complex, sympathetic, not necessarily, but like, just, man, it's and great character design. Like the Amazonian, we always talk about the Amazonian sequence and how that's like, you compare that to,
you're making me want to watch it again. Like
Wonder
I'm like
Woman.
Not gonna sleep tonight. I'm just gonna go watch it again.
Yeah, you were texting me like quotes from those scenes while you were watching it.
I was literally
and showing me video.
I was recording. I probably recorded half the movie and sent it to Brandon.
Yeah. I'll send the Ryan cut. I'll post it later. The Zack Snyder's Justice League Ryan cut.
Yeah.
From the little handy cam footage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. It works on so many levels. And yeah, I mean, there are things that I'm like, we talk about. It's amazing that he was able to pull off the stuff that he did without being able to shoot a lot of the stuff that he intended to shoot, like the Darkseid stuff, like Superman's coming to Darkseid, anti-life equation, the lowest death, all that stuff that they had to do a little trickery to pull off, but it works.
Did it really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think about, being a Superman fan, the Lois and Clark stuff was something that their reconvening was something that I was so excited about after BVS. This shot at the end of BVS where like she sees that he's dead and like her life just like drains out of her body. Like Katie always loses it at that sequence. Like she just starts bawling when she sees that scene. But and then we this is Justice League a little bit, but like, and we saw some like hints of like what that was going to be in the trailers leading up to Justice League. And then we saw it and it just wasn't there.
No.
So that with this,
there's barely any connective tissue.
That was such a huge part of this movie. And like you said before, there was so much more in there that I wasn't expecting, like where he pulls the black suit out and you get the Jor-El and Jonathan Kent monologue as he's, walking out of the scout ship. And like, I mean, it's 4 hours of chill. I got chills talking about it. I sent picture of Brandon with my goosebumps. I was watching it the other day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely.
There's so many
the dark
payoffs
side of
too.
this movie.
Like,
yeah,
just that we were, and again, just even if we don't get a continuation, there's enough here that's like closure for, okay, this is more than we deserve, period, considering. But I feel like it allows, like I said, that's why I was able to rank Justice League higher than it deserved to be, considering the circumstances, because we now have this version that I don't have to, watch Justice League anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like things really come full circle for Clark. The whole, like you were saying, the whole, the Fly Son, it's time. That whole arc from his father's perspective, even though it's kind of in his head, I guess. But for Bruce's arc from BVS to this, that redemption story.
How badly he wants to right his wrongs in this movie.
He's so yeah. And we talked about this. We've talked about this subject at length every time we podcast. But just how stubborn he is to try and fix that mistake.
And dude, we talk about this. We're talking about Superman. We talk about Batman. We talk about Darkseid, Steppenwolf, and that leaves out for me at least, the best moment in the movie. Probably my favorite moment in any comic book movie ever. The Flash out of nowhere. The Flash at the end of this movie has a moment that is just. If anybody's watching this video right now and they haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League,
how'd you get here?
God, go. One, how'd you get here? Two, for the love of God, go watch the movie. If you're not going to watch the movie, at least YouTube the Flash sequence at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and you'll be like, I got to go watch that movie. But I say all that to say all the development of all the characters that he had to bring into this world, Cyborg and Aquaman and Wonder Woman, like we actually got to see them given the appropriate amount of screen time to justify their actions and their feelings and their struggles.
Well, every character has an arc, and that's another benefit from the runtime. But
right.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard. We gush on this movie all the time. It's just one of those things. There's so many great things.
It's Lord of the Rings, but a DC movie.
Yeah. It's hard to it's hard to really say do a elevator pitch. This is why I love this movie, because there's so many things. It's 4 hours worth of movie to there's so many things to hit upon.
Right. It was such a long road to get there too. And
and then there's still things that are man, the way it tees up other things that we still would love to see, with the whole Nightmare stuff, with things that they intended to include in this movie with Green Lantern that they weren't a lot it's we're still playing this game where WB's still being dicks about it.
I know.
Release the Snyder cut of the Snyder cut.
Release Zack Snyder on DC everything is what needs to
Yeah.
be released.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That was so appropriate. All right. Well, there's only one left, and there's only one movie left for both of us. So without further ado, do what?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your number one? I'm curious.
Without further ado, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition for the snobs out there like us.
I believe you.
Yep, that one. Batsy. Yeah, and I should have mentioned this too to show you how much I like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I probably spent what $3,000 on merch. Absurd.
Let's go through all the things that you've purchased.
I bought a 1/3 scale black suit Superman, Prime 1. That was $1,000. I bought the Dark Side 1/4 scale Weta statue, which was like $1,500. I bought the $200 vinyl from Mondo. Hot Toys, Nightmare Batman, Black Suit Superman, and I need to stop before I start embarrassing myself. The amount of money that I spent on this movie, because it just keeps going and going. Anyway,
I bought a lot of things too, but not as much as you.
Yeah,
I don't have to list them, but
anyways, Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition. I fell.
We saw this together. This was the first movie we ever saw together, Ryan.
It is, yeah. We saw it in IMAX.
With Al, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know, right? That's weird. That's really weird now. I
wanted to kill him coming out of this movie too, because he his first thing, we were like, yeah, he was like, man, that was terrible.
I think I'll be honest with you, the first few times we saw movies with Al, he would just shit on everything that we saw. So I just was like, I kind of just discarded his opinion about everything.
Well, yeah,
this guy just hates movies. Why does he keep going to them?
It's true. Yeah, he says that he has to see every Batman movie in theaters because he did it when he was a kid. So I guess he's just a glutton for punishment. I don't know. I don't get it. But
I still think he's a closet Snyder guy. He'll never admit it, but that's okay.
No, I think so too. I think so. Whenever he reveals it, we'll just be like,
"That's a twist. That's very twisty."
This movie, kind of like what you just mentioned, again, the Ultimate Edition is amazingly better, and I have no idea. I mean, I know why, but I have no idea why at the same time they didn't release the Ultimate Edition in theaters. But even the theatrical version, I freaking fell in love with this movie from the get-go. I saw it a lot in theaters. Saw this movie a lot.
How many times did you see it?
Oh, I don't know. This one was, I remember it competing with The Dark Knight, which was 7-ish. I saw it a lot. I just, every time I would talk to somebody new about this movie, I would start talking to them.
You want to go see it?
Man, you want to go see it?
Yeah, I think I saw it 3 times.
Yeah. But yeah, the sensibility, this movie's very dark. Way darker than anything that in the comic book world kind of that had come out. Even Blade and that kind of stuff. This has a level of emotional darkness and I don't know.
Yeah,
bringing Batman into it, and it's really broken and twisted Batman that's been created. instead of like jumping in and doing the origin thing, like this is another one of those movies where you see something that's completely different. Like we see a broken
World
twisted
weary.
Yeah. And you have, and you use
20 years in Gotham, Ryan.
How many of them are left?
I mean, he stayed that way.
And then you use Superman, who is struggling to be at the end of the movie the thing that it's like I'm saying this out loud, and I'm like, it's amazing to me that people criticize Snyder's Superman. Like, think about like the power behind the inspiration.
He doesn't smile.
Well, like think about the power for the inspiration for what he does for a Batman character that's so messed up at the beginning of this movie, and by the end, he promises to him on his grave that he's gonna like.
Yeah.
Like you want to talk about an inspirational Superman? There it is. It's right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, really from top to bottom on this movie, there's nothing that I will complain about. Again, we've got little dialogue things that we joke about with, like, I work for Bruce Wayne.
I work for Bruce Wayne.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
People listening are probably like, I don't even remember when that was in the movie.
Yeah. Well, you haven't seen it 30 times either. So
That's right.
Go watch it again. Catch up.
And we've talked about it at length. I love Lex in this movie.
Yeah. He's a character that I will admit I was unsure as far as his portrayal, even coming out of my initial viewings. And he's one that continues to grow on me more and more every time I watch it. Like, I love how just it's definitely a take, and I can see how it could be abrasive for certain people. And again, it was abrasive for me at first, but it's one of those things that I just started, just learn to love and really like appreciate the take.
Wong.
Not that one.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were.
Nope.
Nope. No, he's great. I love the eccentric nature that we see. He's crazy. Like he's he's brilliant and he's crazy. And in the Ultimate Edition, you really see how he's twisted these two titans. Yeah.
Well, yeah. How plotting he is and planning, like he's like, that's a lot of that is kind of left unknown in the theatrical, but you really see how conniving and his whole grand plan comes to fruition, comes together.
Yeah.
And also just like, there's a lot of mystique with him in terms of his history, like his dad, and that whole element is super intriguing.
Yeah.
The father-son relationship is a dynamic that plays throughout most of these characters going forward. All of them.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess even for Diana, like she's got daddy issues too. Who doesn't? Everybody.
Yeah, everybody's got daddy issues.
But yeah, I mean, we haven't even gotten to this movie has the best Batman ever put on screen. I mean,
yeah,
that's a fact.
It's not even, like, it's like you get like the Bale Keaton people like battle down here, and then it's just like 20,000 feet of whatever, and it's Ben Affleck. Like, it's not even close to the next for me.
That's true.
The dude Affleck just oozes Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And this Batman is so like, the first time I watched a Batman movie, and I was like, I always describe this for BBS, like I feel like I'm watching a comic book come to life. In the most in the most tasteful way that you could possibly do it.
Right.
And Batman is kind of like Batman in this movie is kind of like the prime example for that. Like he's just ripped off a page, man. Like you want that. And it starts out that way with the sequence where the girls are trapped and the cops come in to let them out, and they're like, "I don't want to come out." The demons, like it's like this whole new take on that character in live action, and it was so refreshing and powerful.
Yeah, it's like Bale had that thing where he was like, he's scared of bats and he wants, the criminals to, understand his fear or whatever he says. I can't remember the line. Mm-hmm. You never really feel that though. Like you feel in this movie that he's like a monster. Like it's like a horror movie, that intro to him.
And
like
the music is that
a
way
company.
too.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we also haven't hit on as much that we probably should have.
Yeah.
The scores throughout these three movies are great. Like they're iconic.
Got them all on vinyl.
Yeah. Not yet, you don't.
I will. Still waiting on that Zack Snyder Justice League pre-order. Just like everything else.
Was it 7 vinyls?
7 discs, yeah.
Yeah. Vinyls. I said it again, Ryan. Sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. We won't tell Al again.
7. What is it? 7 vinyl? Just sounds weird.
7 records.
Yeah, that's correct.
But yeah, that the music for Ben Affleck's Bat and the transition that in all of these movies, really like the evolution of Zimmer's music and Junkie's work on it, like it's pretty awesome. Like the music very much in like a non-cheesy way evolves with the character. Like you turn something like that Batman theme, which is, I mean, again, if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's like blood curdling.
Yeah.
Dark.
Well, I mean, it's especially the Batman theme. It is a state of mind for Bruce and Batman in that movie. And
then in DSJL, he takes that music and very much still that music, but twists it in a way to kind of accentuate the transition that Bruce is going through from being this like brooding murderer.
Yeah. I mean, he's still, that's the thing though. It doesn't kind of disregard the character of Batman when you get to ZSJL, but it's just a furthering of growth.
Right.
It's honestly getting him back to where he probably was towards the beginning when he was a lot more hopeful and had a lot of faith in humanity and then lost it along the way. But that's another thing about this movie that's so great is you have an established Batman. There's so much baked in history. We all come into this movie having our own history. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, we have our own, we know things about Batman. We know that his parents were killed. They show that again. And a lot of people complain about that, but it was pivotal to the story. And I'm sorry, it's the best version of the Wayne murders that's ever been put to film. So I'm sorry,
dude. And people knock Snyder for realism and surrealism when, like, in fact, most of his choices are done like they're creative choices. He's done intentionally, like the pearls when Martha gets shot and the pearls fly out and the one pearl lands in the cave where Bruce is, like, and the bat's lifting him up. Like it's all like, it's so like, it's kind of like the music, like it's a state of mind thing. Like they're like visually showing you.
Well, the problem is the people that complained about that didn't understand it. They took it literally. They're like, he can fly in this movie. Right. Like they just, they just want, there's idiots. Okay. Um,
A lot of
I'm just
owls
kidding.
out there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just, I just feel like there's such a great pairing of we talked about, the music, but I just, with the Batman thing, like there's and the history that's kind of just like I said, baked in just with the Robin thing, that history, the relationship between he and Alfred, and how Alfred really is his only connection to humanity.
If there
Really,
is another generation,
yeah,
like he's so
yeah.
spiteful.
In your dreams, Alfred.
Yeah.
Um,
What's funny is, we've been talking about like the grandiose nature of this plot and all the like emotional journeys and stuff. When I left the theater, to the credit of like the Robin suit thing you mentioned, like that was the sequence that stuck in my mind. Was like, do we really just see like is there really a dead Robin in this world? Like
right.
is those kind of things like that really, like, you can just tell you're just planting the seeds for so many stories that you can tell in this world. And that's why I love this. Like, that's why it kills me with these new movies when like they're so disconnected from it, where they're like 1 foot in and 1 foot like, all right, we're kind of shifting to doing something else. Like,
Yeah.
I just, there's so much material there to be mined. Awesome material.
Yeah. It's true. It's too bad that only we liked it.
maybe my $3,000 in merch will help move the needle.
It's a start. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think this was how many times, Ryan, did we put this on while we were working, and just, it's like, it felt like every week we just had this movie on.
It turned into
picture in a picture.
Like, you would call me and we'd be like, get to a lull in the conversation and be like, so you know, put BBS on.
Yeah.
but like both of us
Sync it up. 3, 2, 1, play.
So we put it on. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I know that a lot of people complain that Snyder was more focused, or wanted to make a Batman movie more than he wanted to make a Superman movie. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think that this movie is very much, it's definitely not a Superman solo film in terms of a sequel to Man of Steel. I mean, it is a sequel, but so it's kind of both their movies. I think it's very much like both characters, especially in the Ultimate Cut, both of them, like especially more so with Superman, like showing him investigating and doing, like, going across the bay to Gotham and talking to people, and just showing his struggle, like you were saying earlier, just his struggle with what he is inclined to do versus what people expect from him versus, just everything that, like, you can imagine. That's what's so great about these movies just in general, is because they take, this isn't your, like, this isn't your altruistic version of Superman. It's not like your Boy Scout version. It's because that just wouldn't exist. Like, this is such a,
like, what's the point of having that if you don't, like, earn it?
Yeah.
Like, it means nothing. Like, when I watch, and I'm not knocking Christopher Reeve, like, everybody's takes different. Like, and I like the first Superman movie, and I like the Donner Cut, but like, they're not movies that like emotionally move me at all. It's just like it's just a very bare bones, like, this is an overpowered human.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to, there's not a lot of meat to it, you know?
Yeah. It's silly to think that like people like this would change. I mean, and it's so great. It's so great how they like tee this up as far as like with the whole, all the little like talking heads from the media and news that are talking about like battling each other on, should Superman exist, period, or should we fear him? Should we accept him? How, like, all those kind of types of conversations would happen. So what?
There is.
Yeah.
I said, must there be a Superman? There is.
Yeah. There he is.
No, I agree.
And it's a great, and you juxtapose, like you see, because that kind of tees up the whole reason for this movie, like especially like tying in the Metropolis, Zod battle, and then showing it from Bruce's perspective.
That sequence blew my freaking mind when I saw it in theaters for the first time. I love that. I love that title card. Mankind is introduced to the Superman.
Yeah.
But just like an eerie music playing, and it's like the underbelly of what you see in Man of Steel.
Yeah. Yeah. Stakes.
Oh man.
That's the thing. I mean, people don't, listen, do I think that they plan to do this from Man of Steel? No, I don't. I don't think that was the case. But is it a really good idea in retrospect that, hey, we could do this? And what if we showed, this is how stories are made.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it wasn't, Breaking Bad didn't know where they were going from season 1 to season 3. Yeah, they made it up as they went.
Like, sure, like if you're starting out and you're like, okay, we're gonna make 5 movies. If you can go ahead and plan those whole 5 movies and have it baked for a strong story that you want to tell, great. Like, that's awesome. Everybody should strive to do that. But at the end of the day, like, storytelling is storytelling. It doesn't matter when the storytelling or ideation, whatever happens. Like, if you have a good story and you think about it after the movie came out, tell that story. Like,
what's cool about Snyder though is even though they may not have had that idea when they were making Man of Steel, they still laid track with Wayne Enterprises and LexCorp in Man of Steel, because they were like, maybe we'll continue this, so maybe we'll hint at things that we may pay off, we may not, but at least we'll lay the groundwork a little bit. And but yeah, that opening sequence is, especially when you look at the attention to detail with the whole like
that side-by-side video of like the laser.
It's so crazy.
Heat vision.
And that's something that nobody would have caught as far as how accurate it is.
Yeah.
But it lines up so perfectly, and it's just amazing.
It's amazing.
And what we're talking about is Zod's whole like laser. When Zod first gets his like laser eyes inside the building, somebody did a GIF or a video or whatever that had them layered together, where you have both scenes and how they're just perfectly
the movements. Like when he moves his head one direction, they've on the other side of the screen they've got BVS. You can see the beam shooting out of the building the same direction. Like, and he moves it back. It's just it's just crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, just through and through, this movie's just rock solid. And we hadn't even talked about the warehouse sequence, the absolute best Batman sequence ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, that was when we came out of the theater
on the 3rd floor. How about I drop you off on the 2nd?
Right. When we came out of the theater, we all went to Tin Lizzy, ate some tacos after, and I was like, I don't care about Justice League. You give me a Ben Affleck Batman movie right now.
Yeah, I remember
Like,
that.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Just based on that warehouse sequence.
Oh, it's so amazing, dude. And just the dude is a freaking animal in that fight.
Yeah.
He gets stabbed in the shoulder, just rips it out and pins him against the wall.
Oh man, so good. And a lot of that credit goes to Citron. But man, the physicality and just that whole sequence, just choreography wise, is just awesome.
Yep.
It's the first time you've ever seen Batman look like he trained with the League of Shadows at some point. Like, Nolan films did what they could with the fight choreography, and it's okay. It's just not as great.
It's also the first time that like you see a Batman that like legitimately looks like a brawler Batman,
Yeah.
That's especially when in like really every movie aside from Begins where he's yoked up a little bit, but
yeah,
you just never get that like they have that sequence where he's like squatting and like like dude is just like he's an animal and he gets in that suit that's padded too, like he's just like basically throwing guys around the room. Like everything that he does is like so like angry in the combat. Like
yeah,
it's the only time that you really feel like okay, a guy's going in there versus 24 dudes. Like what could one dude really do? But like you watch that sequence and you're like, all right, he's gonna just destroy all these guys.
Yeah. Man, so well done.
That's
there
not
was
even
something
the nightmare stuff introduction in BVS as well. Holy moly. As another moment in theaters where I was like, that's an Omega symbol.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah. And I think
Anti-Life Superman. Oh my gosh. There were several moments when I watched that for the first time, and I still think the same thing when I watch it. I'm like, how are we getting this in a live action movie? And then especially coming off of The Dark Knight where everything was so grounded.
Right.
It was just so great. It's everything I wanted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and there's another, like we talked about Affleck being the best Batman on screen. That's that Nightmare Batman is my favorite Batsuit. Like it's the coolest. It's the coolest Batsuit ever. I don't know what it is.
Convince me otherwise. You can't convince me otherwise. The Joker card on his rifle, like, come on.
Yeah.
The trench coat, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it just works on every level.
Absurd, yeah.
And I just remember seeing like the initial trailer, I think, whatever the first glimpse. I think either Clay, somebody posted an image that image of Affleck with the goggles. It was close up, and I was like, "What is this going to be?" Like I was like, "How does this play in this movie?" Yeah, what is going on? But yeah, it's just.
Pitbull awesome. Gonna start playing?
Oh man.
Yeah, and I don't know. It just tees up again, kind of like what you mentioned. Like that movie tees up so much stuff. That's why I love it so much. I think ultimately, like, it lays the groundwork for all of the Justice League storyline, the death of Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, like all of this stuff in a movie that was like totally unexpected. I remember when they announced that at Comic-Con, I was like, what? Yeah, it's yeah. Make Justice League 2 and 3, please. Please.
With the love of Pete. Well, that's our number one. Surprise, surprise. I honestly thought that I thought that we were going to be off a little bit on those.
So did we have the same top 5?
Top 4. 5. Yeah, top 5.
Shazam forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's surprising. At the same time, not really.
Yeah. 2 peas in a pod.
That's right. Well, anyways, we were a minute over. We should have ended at 2:14. Oh well.
That's too bad.
Anyways, we appreciate.
We can go back and trim. We'll trim a little bit.
That's right.
Out.
Then it
trim a few words that I mispronounced.
Yeah. Yeah. But then it wouldn't be the true vision or the true, true cut of this.
People, they got to campaign for it.
That's true. So, got to earn it.
That's how this works.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys watching. If you've gotten this far, please, God, be our friends.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm
That's good every time. So hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on. We do a weekly show where we talk about all things comic book movie news, trailers, upcoming movies, and then we also review comic book movies as they come out. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter at CAPECAST Show, and we now have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/CiNEMACHiNE So I hope that we see you guys in the comments. We do our weekly show live. We love interacting with y'all. It's been awesome. So definitely tune in for that. And Brandon, you got anything else, or should we peace out?
I think that's all I got. I'm gonna go to bed.
All right. 2 hours and 17 minutes in.
Yeah.
All right. We will see y'all next week.
So long.